Can everyone see and hear?
Phone off.
My phone's off. Just some housekeeping. Toilets are out through that door. You have to sort out which is male and which is female when you get there. Okay, well, welcome. People here have travelled a fair way to get to arrive here today. Perth, Brisbane, and Rachel and Zuni from San Francisco. Thank you all for being here with us to commemorate and celebrate the life of Catherine, Kate, and Laurie Ballston, who passed away just a week apart in the arms of their daughters and the loving care of Estia Allgate staff and residents. Kate, dearly loved sister to Seamus and Mary, and their spouses, Mari, Dermot, all now passed away. Lawrence, brother to Graham, deceased, myself, and my wife Ros. Parents to Jacqueline and Brian, husband Brian, Louise and husband Matthew. Grandparents to Tom, Charlie and Matilda. Aunt and uncle to Jim, Monica, Francis, Mary, Andrew and Rachel and their families. Lawrence and Katie celebrated 59 years of marriage in February this year. Now they're together again. There was a long-standing joke between Lawrence and I about him accidentally breaking my leg when I was a baby. He went to save me falling off a couch and broke my leg. I've never forgotten that and reminded him about it. Being nearly 10 years older than me, my memories started when Lawrence was a teenager. I remember him dinking me to school and making me the fastest billy cart in the street. He left home around 20 years of age to go to New Guinea, and it was sad to see him go, but I was quite happy because I inherited his bedroom on the veranda. I inherited his push bike with gears, which helped on my paper round, and I inherited his electric train set, which I sold in my early teens, and he never got over that for me. I was his best man at his wedding, and it was the first time I met Kate. Distance and diligence of work separated us for many years, except for the occasional birthdays and Christmases. It wasn't until Lawrence and Katie moved to Gympie, and their parents also moved there later, that I developed a deeper relationship with them. We spent many times eating and going out, and I remember Lawrence's favourite meal was calamari. And he always said the best calamari he'd ever tasted was at Rachel's wedding. Finally, I would like to thank Jacqueline and Louise for organising the memorial in very difficult times. And I'd also like to thank members of Roz's family, Don and Anne, and especially Marg and Jim, for their help by taking Lawrence and Katie out at times. Lawrence and Katie look forward to those visits, and they really appreciated it. Lawrence and Katie, rest in peace.
Dear Kate, Kate was like a big sister to me. I was the oldest of our family, but Kate was up here. We shared many things: love of family, our brothers and sisters, our children and our grandchildren. She was always interested in the latest pursuits. We shared a love of gardening, of music and of exercise, although her exercise regime was much more consistent than mine. We also shared ways to negotiate life with the Ballston boys, not always easy. When Jackie and Louise were overseas or interstate, we shared many Christmases together in Bundaberg, in Jandowae, in Brisbane, and later when Andrew and Rachel were away, in Gympie and Harvey Bay with Kathy and Ivan, my other sister. There was always the Irish story, general hilarity, and a familial closeness. Katie became a much-loved part of my family here in Adelaide as well, and I thank Mark and Jim and Don and Anne for embracing Katie and Lawrence when we lived so far away. We will always remember our final video call just a few hours before she passed away, when she jokingly told us how she had come to terms with the Estia staff showering her, and then her final goodbye when she joked as she waved her floppy hand to us. Rest in peace, dear Kate.
Well, thank you all for coming here on such an awful, windy, cold, miserable day. Mum and Dad hated this kind of weather, so I'm sure they're actually glad they don't have to attend in person. Our beloved parents, pillars of our family, undivided to the end, surrendered to their fate, uncomplaining and with dignity. Mum with her endless enthusiasm for life, curiosity, creativity, humour, intelligence and generosity. Dad more thoughtful, patient, steady, affectionate and adventurous. As children of World War II, they were not emotional. They learned stoicism and pragmatism at an early age. Mum in the village of Kiltorma in the cold green countryside, County Galway, surrounded by her 43 cousins, animals, peat fires, three-legged stools, black pots of lamb stew and stories of Vikings, warrior women and the little people. Dad grew up in the cold grey suburbs of Melbourne with his family and friends, tennis courts, trams, camping trips, Vegemite and stories of bushrangers and explorers. Mum went to boarding school with the nuns, which she loved, and went on to finishing school and worked in London. Dad went to Haileybury College and had a paper run on his bicycle that required him putting newspapers down the front of his jumper to protect him from the biting cold. It was the cold that brought Mum to Australia. When walking past Australia House in London, she saw photos of sunny Queensland and decided on a whim to just go in and apply. She paid her £10 and arrived a few months later into Sydney, where she worked for a few weeks in a prawn factory before she tells us that a handsome date mentioned that she smelt like a prawn, and so she decided to head north. The cold drove Dad north as well, to New Guinea, as Tony mentioned, where he worked for Burns Phillip and ventured into the highlands with the natives who were still living their traditional lives. They met in Mackay, working on boats, taking tourists to the reef, and then travelled to Darwin in the early 1960s, where they loved the frontier vibe and the tropical way of life. They drove 75,000 kilometres to Perth on what was a dusty track with 1 million gates that Mum had to open, and I suspect there's a little bit of Boston exaggeration in those numbers. They were prone to that. They lived in Perth for a while before heading back to London and family in Ireland. They returned in Melbourne in 1966 to be married, away from the 43 cousins, and scampered back to Darwin to its balmy heat and to build a house and raise a family. Here Louise and I spent our early days in the heat, swimming and playing on beaches until Cyclone Tracy tore it all away in one traumatic night. We moved to Queensland, where my ever-industrious parents bought a farm at the base of a mountain, renovated an old house, built sheds, grew crops, vegetables, raised pigs, chicken and cattle, and Louise and I with the childhood of freedom, of outdoor adventures, of endless pets, special secret places and leafy blue views, for which I am eternally grateful. With no neighbours nearby, we were a close family, and we played games every night after dinner. We listened to music before bed, read a lot, and sometimes watched our small little black and white TV with its hazy 2 channels. Boarding school and then university took Louise and I away from the farm, and our parents moved to Billawheeler, where their passion for homemaking inspired them to renovate another house, and Dad designed and constructed large industrial sheds. At age 23, I set off to explore the world via Asia, and Dad joined me in Nepal for 2 months of trekking in the Himalayas. We went whitewater rafting down rivers, saw tigers and rhinoceroses in the wild, chatted with ever-friendly locals and contemplated the temples. He took it all in his stride, wearing his ever-present elastic-sided work boots, even across the glaciers of Mount Annapurna. He loved the Asian culture, the food, the exotic sights and smells, and took some fantastic photos. I travelled with Mum as well, back to the home country, to visit family and friends, and to soak up the Irish way of life and connect with my roots, which was quite an incredible experience. They then moved to Gympie, where the compact houses and little village rolling green reminded Mum of Ireland, but without the cold. And they built yet another house and renovated a fourth, each surrounded by a beautiful garden, as was my mum's passion. They had many wonderful years and friends there through their 60s, 70s and 80s. Dad established a table tennis club, made furniture and games from timber. Mum did Tai Chi, line dancing and aqua aerobics, and hosted endless afternoon teas, lunches to everyone who came by. They travelled Australia, visiting friends and family, and spending time with their 3 wonderful grandchildren, Tom, Charlie and Tilly, whom they loved dearly. Dad came with me to Myanmar to explore the fascinating Buddhist culture, people, landscapes and food. I remember as we sat by the Irrawaddy River, watching a gorgeous golden sun set over the stupas, that he wished that Mum was with us. It was no doubt difficult for them to leave Gympie, and yet the resilient pragmatism and adaptability and the loving care from the Estia Allgate staff, some of who are here today, made the last 2 years of their lives happy and active. We went to the gym weekly, supported by our wonderful April, who is here as well. We went on scenic drives, coffee or lunch. We saw shows and musical performances and saw a lot more of family. As parents, they were firm but always fair. They were good-humoured, energetic, hard-working, supportive and safe. They loved ridiculous conversations, and together we founded the Dead Sock Society for widowed socks, and sometimes met to discuss the latest number of members and how we could provide them with the relevant counselling that they might need. They travelled life through thick and tin, together to the end. They inspired us all with their energy, enthusiasm, resilient love for each other and life, their stoic ability to make the best of what was, and a generosity of time and spirit that had no bounds. The poem that we have here we found in a book of Mum's entitled Favourite Prayers, and it seemed appropriate. Wherever they may be now, they are already and will continue to be dearly missed by us and so many others. Dad, I miss your wide open smile, warm hugs and careful teachings. And Mum, I miss your cheeky Irish wit, your sparkling eyes and enthusiasm for life. Be at peace, my beloveds. You okay, honey? You can do it. I'm not sure I can, but I feel like I'm at a distinct disadvantage because you went first.
Sorry.
And now I've already started. I've brought back up.
No.
So I can't keep going. Okay, just give me a sec.
We have plenty of time.
I knew I should have had a margarita. I did think about it. I was thinking, is 11:30 too early for a margarita? But
There's a lot of babies there.
now I'm kind of wishing I had. Might have made this a little easier. Okay. The olds.
We always call them the olds. They didn't like it, but we did.
I can't remember when Jackie and I first started calling them the olds. I can't even remember who started it. Probably Jackie, she was good at these things. But we've been calling them the olds for decades now. I remember it at high school. I think I even remember it at primary school, where it was always just the olds. I think people who didn't know our parents may have misunderstood that term, but for us the olds encapsulated what we always knew about our parents, that they were much more than just two individuals who had chosen to be together in life. It reflected what Jackie and I always kind of perceived about them, is that in many respects they were a unified entity, moving through life and time together, so closely intertwined in so many ways that it was sometimes difficult to recognise them even as separate people. Throughout my life, I can only recall one time where I heard them argue badly, I guess, or in strong Irish words. But that doesn't mean that they weren't strong or that they lacked strength of conviction or their own opinions. Quite the contrary. Their strength was always quietly evident. Mostly, or often unseen, lying beneath a warm and loving blanket of compassion and compromise. You're right.
You're good. Deep breath.
Thanks to Dad, I grew up believing that there are very few things in day-to-day life that are actually rocket science, and that most issues that you encounter can be resolved or at least understood a little better if you're willing to get your hands a bit dirty. Thanks to Dad's guidance, I was able to teach Tom how to change a tyre on his car. Sorry, Matt, I took that from you. I once built a deck on the back of my house after Dad had built the first half and then left me to it. I also had the confidence and perseverance to spend no less than 3 hours last weekend trying to fix the washing machine, unsuccessfully, I might add, on that occasion, but that was probably because Dad wasn't there for me to ring and ask advice from. Dad's calm teaching and patient advice has consistently served as a steadfast rudder, steering me forwards in life. The realisation that I can no longer call him and say, what paint should I be putting on an outdoor table, just breaks my heart. Dad's greatest lesson for me, however, was the art of bravery, through a lifetime of unwavering support. He gently held my fears. Sorry. I've practiced this 400 times, I have to say, and I thought it was going to go better. Encouraged me to confront my fears, instilling in me the courage to take ownership of my life. He guided me in navigating the world joyfully, despite knowing that living well would most likely mean moving afar, exploring the world. No matter where I was, I knew Dad would be cheering me on, urging me to go further, explore more, see things, experience things, and to live a fulfilling life. From travelling the world to then becoming a mother to my 3 beautiful children, our 3 beautiful children, it's all about me, sorry, our 3 beautiful children, Dad was there quietly celebrating every achievement and witnessing our life's challenges, often with a photograph to prove it. I'm so grateful that Dad had the opportunity to see our children grow. It was so clear how much he loved them. Kids, I see Dad in each one of you in varying ways, in the shadows of how you move, the colour of your eyes, sometimes the expressions that you use. You each have this unique strength, and I see that it's come from Dad in so many ways. Mum, more than anyone I've ever known, Mum chose love above everything else. Her loving embrace has provided me with a sense of safety throughout my life. Now, as a mother of myself, I understand the efforts behind clean nappies and baby food, 1,000 dinners, clean clothes, teacher's notes, spelling homework, ginger cakes. These things do not magically happen in families. They are the powerful work of mothers in so many ways. As a parent, I've grown to realise and appreciate the years of sacrifice that Mum made for Jackie and I, even long after we'd left home. Her gentle wisdom taught me how to be a better mother, to allow my children, oh my God, sorry, to allow my children the freedom to explore their lives, to take risks, to fall, to rise, to express their emotions, to practice kindness. Although I accept my no doubt many parental failings as all my own work, I give any credit to my true successes as a mum, I think to Mum. Her voice has echoed through my life, imparting patience, advocating love. She loved Matt and our children through time and distance. She taught me so much with a conscious yet subtle determination to prepare me for a life. She taught me about the challenges faced by a woman in this world and how to be adventurous and brave anyway. She taught me that everyone deserves love, even those people that may not seem deserving of it all the time. That nurturing your strength and your voice is hard, but it's also so important. That meditation expands your mind, and not having time to meditate is exactly the reason why we should all be meditating. She taught me that homemade soup can heal a lot of ills, and that poetry and prayer reveals that love is the ultimate truth. Mum told me once that death is not the elephant in the room. Death is the room. We are the elephants. I think it meant that we must deeply understand that life is always entwined with death, and with this knowledge that we should always choose faith, friendship, chocolate, forgiveness, hugs, pot plants, each other, flowers, Baileys, blessings and love. The day before her passing, Mum encouraged me to be brave. I said I didn't feel very brave in that moment, but she said, I love you. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel that right now, but hopefully I will. Ultimately, the olds chose each other in life and in death. Those of us fortunate to know and love them understand that this was always how it was going to be. Goodbye, Mum and Dad, I love you.
Get my breath back. Kate and I were born in Ireland in the same year. In fact, there's only a few weeks difference between her birthday in October and mine in December. My first contact with Kate and Laurie occurred at the gym, where immediately there was a connection. And so often we would spend too much time at the gym discussing our background and what we were doing in Ireland or growing up. Then one of us would have to break up and say, oh look, you'll have to keep going, you know, and that was usually Kate. Laurie explained to me when we first met that he had dementia, which made it difficult for him to communicate. And he was quite comfortable with his situation just the same. And Kate, on the other hand, what Laurie had problems with communication, Kate made up for it. She sure did. There's an Irish song that begins with the words, "When Irish eyes are smiling, sure the world is bright and gay." And I'm pretty sure that whoever wrote that song must have met Kate at one time, because she personified that. She had that effect on people, and I'll never forget those twinkles in her eyes. She had such a sense of humor, and she would pretend that she was competing with me. And once I recall when I did a yoga pose on one leg, she come up behind me, punched me in the rib, and she said, "I hate you." I hate you, but I'll get there. And I know that she practiced holding onto a door in her own. She told me that she practiced that. But when we first met, she was pretty frail, having recovered from, I think it was a broken hip, not that long before, and you couldn't part her from her stroller. But you know, she worked so hard. It was amazing. And within 12 months, she was strolling around the gym with a weight in each hand. And I think that says a lot about her strength of character. She loved what we would call in Ireland, they used to say it, the crack. And she was a good crack. Some of the stories that she told, considering after moving to Australia, and after leaving Darwin and going to the farm, some of the hilarious tales she told about the learning curve that they went through. I'll give you one little example. She said the first time she remembered killing a chicken. And she said, I did, like my mother did, I hung it up in the shed, like my mother always would, hang it overnight before cooking, actually. And then she said, one day, the next day, a neighbor came past and she said, what's that horrible smell? So they checked out, and sure enough, it was a chicken, fly blown and smelling to high hell. She didn't realize that, or didn't think that in Ireland the temperature was probably 12 or 13 degrees like it is today, whereas in the shed it would have been about 30 degrees in the humidity. And there was heaps of stories like that that you just couldn't stop laughing. So I shall always remember our time at the gym. We meet just about every Wednesday, and apart from doing our workouts, having a hell of a time, having a crack, as I say. So it is now time for me to say farewell. But Kate and Laurie will always be in my memory as long as I keep going. Kate, a mischievous mom. Yep. So I think that as they stroll hand in hand now, I can imagine them on their way to their final abode. Kate, I shall leave you with a traditional Irish blessing, which begins, may the road rise up to meet you, may the wind be always at your back, may the sun shine warmly upon your face, and may the rain fall gently on your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Until we meet again, may God hold you both in the palm of his hand.